everyone, and welcome to Lord Nelson's blog. My name is Ellen Rankins, and I'm a graduate student with the Equine Science Center at Rutgers University. And joining me today, I have Jennifer Weiner, who is also a PhD student at Rutgers University. So Jen, that our listeners could get to know you a little bit better, and I'd like you to share a fun fact with us.
A fun fact about me is that I grew up on a dairy farm in northern Wisconsin. So before I was a horse person, I spent time as a farm girl up in the northern part of Wisconsin.
Very cool. Lots of snow up there.
Yes, and very cold.
So we're going to start kind of at the beginning of this story. And can you talk a little bit about what motivated you to pursue a PhD in equine science?
So I took a little bit of a not straight route, not direct route to my PhD program. So a lot of PhD students go straight from their undergrad to their graduate work. I did not do that. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin, River Falls, and with my bachelor's degree. And I had one goal. Pretty much my whole life, I was gonna train horses, and so I worked at reining horse training facilities in Texas and southern Wisconsin after I graduated with my undergraduate degree, and made my way back to the University of Wisconsin River Falls, where I managed their laboratory farm. So I managed their horses, their student workers, I managed their breeding program. And as part of my job there, I helped the professors with their needs for their classes and their associated programs and some applied research. And I even got to do a little bit of adjunct teaching, but that wasn't my main job, and it wasn't something I was necessarily qualified to do on a regular basis. And so in order to do that, I had to go back and finish my graduate degree. So it's kind of that experience there that told me, yeah, this is the direction I really wanted to go. And so now here I am at Rutgers in finishing up my fourth year of my PhD program.
Very cool. And so in this whole journey of yours, what role has STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, for those listeners that may not know, what do you think those fields have, how has that factored into your education?
Oh, science and technology and engineering and mathematics, the STEM fields are so important. In terms of my graduate education here, this is a big part of the coursework that you take. And also, you apply some of these areas to your research and your scholarship. So if you're going to go to grad school in the biological sciences, which animal science is, a biological science, you are going to take a lot of biochemistry, you're going to take a lot of statistics, you're going to take a lot of molecular biology and a lot of physiology-based classes. And so that kind of falls into all of those fields. And, in terms of being successful from a research perspective, you need to incorporate a lot of that in, especially on the technology side, whether it's the equipment that you use to collect your data, and or analyze your data. There is a lot of implementation of technology and math and science in everything that we do.
That's great. So you've talked about how important this has been, these fields of STEM, in your current education. So do you think a background in these fields is important? So if you're a young person out there listening to this interview, should they be thinking about pursuing some of these STEM fields?
One word answer, yes. So I don't think you can actually have enough experience in those areas. And truthfully, they're going to make you marketable and employable, regardless of if you pursue, say, a graduate degree in a biological science or an animal science or in any, science field. But these things are so important now. Everybody, I'm sure you know somebody in your life who says, I don't know why we have to learn algebra. I don't know why we have to learn math. I'm never going to use that. I promise you, you will use it. I use math every day. I use technology every day. I use my understanding of science principles to inform, what I do every day. And so that background and learning as much as you can when you're younger really will help you. I know for myself, in particular, I definitely had a deficit in the technology component of that STEM acronym. And I wish I had had more things like computer science earlier on, because I think it would have made my job and my learning process now so much easier if I had an even better background.
Very encouraging for all our listeners out there that they should definitely be involved in the STEM field. So can you talk a little bit about your experience being a woman in a STEM field, since it's traditionally been viewed as a very male-dominated field?
I think that in my specific case, that maybe this isn't as much of a traditionally dominated male field. So maybe animal sciences are, but equine science programs tend to really skew heavily towards female populations. And so I think I came up in terms of academia and working at universities and my education at universities, I'm not sure that it's quite the same as it is in some of the other areas, even of animal science, let alone, other areas of STEM. But I do think that for me, it has been a really positive experience. I have felt, empowered and motivated, and I have not seen anything that ever told me I couldn't do it or shouldn't do it, or that I couldn't be just as good at it as anybody else. And I will say, from the perspective of the equine industry, having worked in different facets of this industry, I definitely feel more empowered in the science aspect and in academia and the university setting than I have in some other aspects that are much more male dominated.
Very encouraging to hear, I think, Jen. So thank you for sharing that. And now I want to ask you a little bit about, so who have been the mentors in your life that have really shaped you and helped you get to the point where you are now?
Well, I think we all have mentors at different stages throughout our life that push us and motivate us and make us want to dedicate ourselves and go even farther. And I'm certainly no exception. And I think I mentioned earlier that I didn't take the most direct route to this spot that I am at now in my PhD program. And so I've had these twists and turns in my life, and I feel like at every stage I've had mentors that I can look to who really shaped my experience, both at the time but also where I was going to go looking forward. And if I look back, when I was a youth, I was heavily involved in the 4-H program, and I really think of those leaders that I had. There were several of them when I was a youth in 4-H that really gave so freely of their time and their resources to help someone like me who really knew nothing at that point to get a start and to learn the basics. And there were things that they taught me about nutrition and physiology when I was a 4th grader in 4-H that I still incorporate in my working knowledge today. So I think it's so important to have those mentors when you're really young. As I got older, there were horse trainers on the horsemanship side of things who really influenced me and were a big part of my learning and my growth process in terms of being a working equine professional. And then, in my undergraduate degree, there was a professor. He was my advisor. His name was Larry Kasten, and he was kind of the he basically grew the equine program at the University of Wisconsin River Falls. He'd been there for over 30 years, and it was really his program that he had developed there. And he really was a great mentor. As a student, I was terrified of him. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what he thought of me, and I was positive that I was going to screw up, and he was going to think I was the world's largest idiot. But he really not only helped me, as a student and learning what I needed to as a student. He helped me in getting my first job after I graduated from my undergraduate degree, and really he was there throughout my life, even when I was, trying to make that final decision about, moving on to do my PhD, Larry, he really was encouraging. He let me, bounce ideas off of him. And when I was really struggling with this idea that I was going to, at 31 years old, put my life on hold and move to New Jersey, I went to his house and I sat in his living room with he and his wife Diane, and we had a really nice talk. And then they were just so supportive. And I think that was, an example of a mentor who is not just a mentor at one time, but can be a mentor throughout your life. And then, obviously, here at Rutgers, my advisor, Dr. Carrie Williams, and Dr. Malinowski at the Equine Science Center have just really shown me some great examples of being a woman working professional in academia in the equine field. So I just I have a lot of really great mentors, and I probably could go on way too long on this question if I wanted to acknowledge and thank all of them.
It's incredible how everyone has contributed to your journey. So really good to hear. So next question is going to ask you about the here and now. So what does the typical day look like for you, or is there a typical day in the life of a graduate student?
The answer is no. There is not a typical day. And that's actually one of the really great things about this job. I think of this as a job. It's my job to be a graduate student right now. And really, no day is the same. It really depends on maybe even what time of year it is. So is it during the academic year, so starting in the fall through the spring semester, or is it during the summer? Or what are where you're at in your program? So one thing that a lot of people don't know about a PhD program is that you do take a lot of in-class credits at the beginning of your PhD program in those first year or two. But then at a certain point, you take this big exam called your qualifying exam. And once you've kind of passed that milestone, you don't really taking in classes in a classroom setting anymore. You're really more focused on your research and your writing. So there's kind of your project components, your research project components that your focus shifts to. And so if you're early on in your program, you might have to study a lot for your classes, which you wouldn't later on. It also depends what kind of appointment you have. So are you on a teaching appointment? Are you on a research appointment? I've had a teaching appointment for most of my time here at Rutgers, so I do have some teaching responsibilities in our department that I have to dedicate a certain amount of time to. A large amount of my time is spent on research as well. I kind of mentioned that. And for me, that involves a lot of different things. So, some days we spend time out at the farm taking, samples in the field and with the horses, and sometimes we're in the lab if we need to run some assays in the lab. And then a lot of time is spent on the computer analyzing the data. So there's all different phases of that. And it just really depends where you're at with your projects. The other thing that can impact that too is, what does your advisor do? So my advisor has an extension appointment. So in addition to being a professor in our department here, she also does a lot of public outreach. And so I've had the opportunity then to help with a lot of those types of events, and also, working with the Equine Science Center.
So I have an inside view, and I know about one of the projects that you're working on for the Equine Science Center. So do you want to talk a little bit about these upcoming trivia nights that you have?
Yes. So we have scheduled a new event called Equine Trivia Tuesdays for Kids. So every Tuesday in August, we are going to have a trivia night, a virtual trivia night. So you'll log into Zoom and compete in a trivia contest every Tuesday at 7 o'clock in the evening. And anybody can participate in this. It doesn't matter how much background you have. Each week's going to have a topic. So we think we have biosecurity, horse anatomy, basic nutrition, and equine behavior. So each week we're going to have a little bit different focus, and we'll ask questions about that. And one of the best parts is there are going to be prizes. So if you log on for a week, we're going to give prizes to our high scorers each week. And so, yeah, I encourage you to check it out. The link is live on our Facebook page to register. So if you want to check it out, please come join us. I'm going to be your host. We're going to have a lot of fun. So I look forward to seeing, hopefully, a lot of people there.
Sounds very exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how these trivia goes. So much as we enjoy graduate school, one day you do have to graduate. And so what are your plans after graduation?
Well, obviously, we're kind of in the middle of, a coronavirus pandemic, which changes some things. I have maybe I won't say the privilege of graduating in the middle of a pandemic, of hopefully graduating in the middle of a pandemic, but the added maybe challenge of that. And so we're not going to focus on that, though. We're going to focus on what we would like to have happen. So ideally, what would happen is I would be able to find a position and stay, working at a university and teaching an extension. I feel like that's, where I fit best. And that's why I got into this in the first place.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. Hope it goes well. And so upon graduation, you become Dr. Weinert. So what are you most excited about becoming Dr. Weinert?
I don't think I've still wrapped my head around that, the doctor in front of the name. I'm not the kind of person where, the title means so much to me in and of itself. I think that completing my doctorate and therefore being Dr. Jennifer Weinert, basically on a personal level, it means that I've kind of accomplished a really big thing. Like I set out to do this, I made the sacrifices, I put in the effort, and I got through it, and I made it to the end, and I've accomplished this big thing, and I'm now able to go forward and hopefully do the things that I really want to do.
That's fantastic. So I think that concludes the questions I had planned for you. Are there any last thoughts or things that I've missed that you wanted to share with our listeners today?
I think you covered it all, Ellen. Like I said, just make sure you all get there for Equine Trivia Tuesdays, and we'll have a good time. And that's probably the big takeaway from today. I think the rest of the questions were great.
All right, well, thank you for sharing your time with us. Very much appreciate having you on, Jen.
You're welcome, Ellen. Thank you.